Here's a method for practicing chord changes over any jazz tune. Today we're going to start with the blues. The blues is a standard set of chord changes generally played over a 12-bar pattern. So, in other words, an old style of blues wasn't traditionally always played in a 12-bar pattern. Eventually it turned into a 12-bar pattern with the certain number of chord changes in a certain order, usually utilizing the 1-chord dominant, the 4-chord dominant, and the dominant 5-chord. Then as jazz rolled along, it got a little more complicated with a few more 2-5-1 chord changes and a diminished chord change. So we're going to actually concentrate on the jazz blues. And the app I use for that is called the iReal Pro app. So the play along you're going to hear is that app. For this tutorial, I'm going to use the C blues, or for trumpet players and tenor players, clarinet players, we're going to be in our key of C. So the first chord change is C7 or C dominant 7. Well, that's a C major scale with a lowered 7th tone. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. The chord for that scale is the 1, 3, 5, and 7 of that scale. In other words, it's the C, the E, the G, and the B flat. So what we're going to do is we're going to run up each chord tone, the digital pattern, which is 1, 3, 5, 7. In other words, we're going to be using numbers. We're going to play the 1, 3, 5, 7 of each chord tone in the jazz blues, or the blues jazz version of a blues. It's kind of confusing. And we're going to play it in eighth notes. So for example, if the tempo is here, the first chord is C7, and we're going 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 3, 5, 7. And we're going to do that for each chord. Before we do that, I wanted to give you a short explanation of dominant chords, minor chords, and diminished chords, or the three types of chords that we're going to encounter in this particular blues tune. So I think of dominant chords as Mixolydian scales, or the 5th mode of the major scale. If you're new to modes, check out my tutorial on the modes of the major scale. So let's get back to the dominant chord and dominant scales. C dominant scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. So what major scale has 1 flat? F. So if we think of F as the 1, what's the 5 of F? F, G, A, B flat, C. So if we play an F major scale starting on C, we get the same notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. Now that's the same for all dominant chords and scales. These are really just major scales starting on the 5th. Okay, so when we go to the 4 chord, or F7, F7 is really a B flat major scale starting on F. Okay, this will make more sense if you go to the video tutorial. But it doesn't matter how you arrive at it. It's a major scale with a lowered 7th, or you could think of it as a major scale starting on a 5th, or think of it as a 5th mode of a major scale. Minor scales are generally Dorian minor scales. Dorian minor scales are the 2nd mode of the major scale. So for example, in this blues, there's a D minor chord. D minor 7 is a major scale with a lowered 3rd and a lowered 7th. Or you could think of it, instead of D minor with a lower 3rd, lower 7th, you can think of it as a C major scale starting on D. At any rate, it doesn't matter how you get there, just as long as you get there. The last chord we're going to go over is the F sharp diminished chord. And I just did a tutorial on diminished scales. The diminished scale you use for a full diminished or F sharp diminished seventh in this case is a half step whole step scale. This chord is made up of all minor thirds, or F sharp, A, C, and E flat. Let's go ahead and get started playing the 1, 3, 5, 7 of each one of these chord tones in this jazz tune. And then it starts over, okay? So that was the 1, 3, 5, 7 of each one of those chords. Now let's play the 3, 5, 7 octave, or the 3, 5, 7, 1, okay? Still talking in digital pattern, pattern language, okay? So let's start from the third of each chord, 3, 5, 7, 1. Here we go. All right, as we get further and further away from the root, it becomes a little bit more difficult. So that's why I like the iReal Pro app, because I can slow it up, slow it down, or speed it up according to how fast or how slow I know the chord changes. And of course, as you get better at this, go ahead and feel free to speed it up. And then you can play and practice all of your jazz tunes this way. So let's go through a couple more digital patterns. This next one is going to be starting on the 5. So we're going to go 5, 7, 1, 3. Now, be sure to change the octave depending on how comfortable you are in on your range. All right, and the final one we're going to do is the 7, 1, 3, 5. All right, so that's the 4 digital patterns that you can start to practice to navigate through any jazz tune. Next tutorial, we're going to do them all descending. Hopefully that gets you started improvising and navigating your way through a simple blues tune. Be sure to go to my website for more free jazz stuff, and also subscribe to my newsletter on my website at jefflewistrumpet.com and get 11 scales for jazz improvisation. Hopefully that was helpful, and we'll catch you in the next tutorial.